Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 90 of Screw the Commute podcast. I got an old friend, Gayl Murphy here with me today. She's the original traffic Tootsie. And not only is she a longtime Hollywood reporter, she teaches us how to do great media interviews. So I'll tell you about her in a minute. We'll bring her on in a little while. The last episode was 89 with Stan Walters, the lie guy. This guy has been in prison 36 times. Right? And he promises to take me there with him. I mean, that kind of sounds like if I go down, you go down. But no, he's one of the foremost experts in the world on deception. So he trains people to spot deceptions, not only law enforcement people and military, but it's business people like us. When we see inconsistencies on employee applications and employee disputes and all kinds, he's a very cool guy. So check that out later. That was episode 89. Now, our podcast app is in the iTunes store. You can go to screwthecommute.com/app, A-P-P. We've got complete instructions that'll do all kinds of cool stuff on your mobile phones and tablets to save your favorite episodes. And if your phone rings, it'll pause the podcast and then start it again after the phone call's done. So all kinds of cool stuff like that. So check it out at screwthecommute.com/app. Now, our youth program has started where once a month we highlight an entrepreneurial youth. And when I say youth, there was a little confusion. This is up to early 20s. If it's older than that, they might be a candidate for our regular podcast. But we really want to highlight youth and get that entrepreneurial spirit going in the young people. So if you know anybody, the way they can apply is to email me at orders@antion.com, orders@antion.com. And I can send them details on how they can apply to be featured. All right, our sponsor for this episode is the Internet Marketing Training Center of Virginia, a distance learning school which teaches legitimate techniques to make a great living either working for someone else or starting your own business or both. So you can check that out at imtcva.org. That's Internet Marketing Training Center of Virginia.org. But just because it's in Virginia, remember, it's distance learning, and it's called asynchronous, which means you don't have to be a certain place at a certain time for your online classes. You can do them anytime you feel like it. So check that out, imtcva.org. All right, let's get to the main event. Gayl is a Hollywood correspondent, media and presentation coach. She says you got to tell it to sell it. She's a speaker and author of Interview Tactics, How to Survive the Media Without Getting Clobbered, and also The Insider's Guide to Giving a Killer Interview. She reports on and works with entertainment and media on TV, radio, print, and online. Gayl, are you
Tom,
ready to screw?
Oh, yeah, baby.
The commute.
Bring it on.
I don't want you to bring that travel or traffic Tootsie helicopter on my head and get mad at me.
Well, yeah. It's a 57 Chevy. That's what the Tootsie drove, was a 57 Chevy with spongy dice hanging off of the mirror.
Did you really have one?
Yeah, seriously. There was a guy here in L.A. named Chuck Barris.
Yes, of course.
Not the TV show guy, but he had the same last name. He had these cars.
Yeah, he created the Batmobile and all that. Yeah, exactly. I know him, sure.
You could rent his cars from him. So what we did was I got a hold of Ringo's 57 Chevy. I laid across it with stiletto high heels on, had a phone in my hand. We took a picture. It was in the newspapers. He was the nicest man. And the way in which we did it with all the car crash sounds in the background, we went to Pep Boys. At that time, I got a tape of them from a variety of different kinds of car sounds. When you beep the horn.
Sound effects, yeah.
We would do it with The Godfather. Da 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 da. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, so we're going to get into some of this history lesson here a little later, but tell them what you're doing now, because I've known you for many, many years, and tell them I know you worked in Europe for something, right? And also you teach people stuff.
Tom.
Isn't that right?
Yes, you're talking to the celebritizer.
Okay.
I work with CEOs, showbiz pros, authors, experts, entrepreneurs. I teach them the successful interview tactics and techniques that some of the biggest superstars in business and entertainment use so they can celebritize themselves. So I'm a Hollywood correspondent. I've been doing that the majority of my career. I've interviewed
explain what's the definition of a correspondent?
Well, a correspondent and a reporter is pretty much the same thing, but a reporter can be print and online. A correspondent typically is radio or television.
Okay.
So I met so many people along the way who had such a great product and service, but they were so unprepared to tell another person about it that it drove me completely nuts. So I thought if I taught people how to survive me in an interview, I wouldn't have to work so hard. So you got that right, Tom. So it immediately turned into a speaking and a coaching career. And so I had been teaching it at something called the Learning Annex here in Los Angeles
and in San
Francisco. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. So it was in LA, San Francisco, San Diego, and New York. And I would go around to all the different ones and I would teach. So I took my my lesson plan and turned it into my table of contents. And I wrote interview tactics, how to survive the media without getting clobbered.
Now, when we look on TV and the anchor person says, let's go to Joe Schmo in Toledo. Now they're just talking directly to the camera. They're not actually interviewing people, but they interviewed people prior to coming on camera to give us the synopsis, right? Is that what you do?
No, my stuff is all done one-on-one.
Which means you're interviewing somebody and that's what's aired, or you're telling us what they said?
Well, I tell them what they said, and then they'll also play it. When I was doing hard news for ABC News, let's say I was covering the Grammys. So I would be backstage covering the Grammys, and the person who won says, I want to thank this person, I want to thank that person. I never thought I would win. I hate myself, but I actually love myself right now. So we would create packages. And so the packages are what would air. So everything was sort of pre-recorded and pre-packaged. I don't use packages anymore. I'm a live reporter.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a very short tail in terms of finding my stuff on the internet, because I work with very big companies, and the idea of asking them to actually get out of their chair and walk across the hall, hit record, and send it to me is very unlikely.
Okay, now, but would you be at a fire scene, or would you just be reporting on some celebrity that just wrecked his car?
There was a time when I would be on the fire scene. But a lot of times there was this. I remember when I was working at KFWB, there was a spate of young children being bitten by pit bulls.
Wow. Okay.
So I spent a lot of time
interviewing pit bulls, right?
Interviewing owners, victims, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
But mostly now I'm back at the Four Seasons eating, tuna rolls and talking to celebrities.
Good for you.
Yes, it's much more my style.
Now, when you said you used the term hard news, and now there's been a lot of stuff lately about how the president is complaining that people that are supposed to be doing news are editorializing. And I mean, when you were doing a news story, did you sometimes think, man, that guy's full of it, but you just can't say it. You just have to report what they said? Because how do you keep your opinions out of it?
Here's the thing. If a friend comes up to you and tells you something about a friend that you both know, one of the first questions you're going to ask them is, who told you that? Where did you hear that? That's called citing your sources. What is the source of that information? And this should be a life lesson for anyone who is ever told about the quote, fake news, end quote,
Mm-hmm.
and they tell them something, ask them where they heard it. Cite your sources. As a journalist, I cannot report a story unless I've seen it with my own eyes or heard it with my own ears. I cannot report a story that two other sources have already confirmed.
Well, the thing is that all you hear is like, well, anonymous sources said. And so how do you check it?
Well, typically you can't. You really can't. So you're actually skating on thin ice. But what you might do is check who is saying that. If it's the daily grind, filthy news from the streets of Ohio, they might have a less credibility than the Associated Press.
Mm-hmm. But what I'm talking about is,
you're always in the driver's seat anyway, whether you choose to believe it or not. I could tell you something that was absolutely true, and 100 people could verify it behind me. If you don't want to believe it,
of course.
You're always sitting in the driver's seat.
That's
you
true.
can choose to not believe it.
But what I'm wondering is how you keep your opinions out. So if a celebrity is telling you straight to your face, oh, I love kids and I do this and that, and you know for a fact that they're just full of it, how do you keep your opinion?
If that is a fact, and he's been accused of child abuse and has served time for it, I'm going to put that in the story because it's always about the listener and the reader.
Well, what we're seeing a lot of days is people are conveniently omitting things that don't support their agenda, rather than reporting both sides.
Even the Bible is open to interpretation. You take the best and you leave the rest. If it doesn't resonate in you, I could stand on my head and spit wooden nickels. You're not going to believe me.
Well, what I'm saying is the hard news source is supposed to give you both sides of the story and not omit things, right?
Well, that's why you have to go with a credible source like the Associated Press or Reuters or the Independent or ABC News, or you have to go with someone that's credible. And also, if they do make a mistake, they have to publish it. They have to make it public. Like if you read the New York Times, if you open up the newspaper itself, on the left-hand side, there's a column that says what we screwed up on yesterday.
Really?
We said the person's wrong age. We said the wrong place he worked for because he doesn't work there anymore. We said he was from San Francisco and he's from Los Angeles. Yeah, they have a whole column on the bottom.
But it seems like they kind of bury the mistakes, compared. They're not going to get as much in people checking them out than the original story that was giant on the front page.
Listen, transparency is transparency, and page 2 is page 2.
Okay. All right. So let's go back. Weren't you something else besides the traffic Tootsie? And what was the traffic Tootsie?
Well, I was something else before that. It was Greta Legumbo, a German dominatrix.
This is on TV, on the news?
No, this was all on radio.
Oh, that was on radio. Okay.
It was my first real job on radio
Greta Gumbo.
in Los Angeles. Yeah, it was a character called Greta Legumbo. I was doing stand-up and improv comedy at the Comedy Store. I've been doing it for years, and that she was one of my characters. And I was listening to this program, and she was perfect for him. So I had a couple of shots tequila, and I called them up, and I actually got right into the air studio. And I said, hello, this is Greta Legumbo, and I've been listening to your program, and your young Marquis is a very, very naughty, naughty boy. He needs a good spanking. And so they put me on the air. So I was on the air with him for about 10 minutes. And when they came back, they said, who are you? And can you come back next week? Can you call in next week? I said, yeah. So I did that show for 2 years, which was great. Yeah. And then I got a real job where they actually paid me on a station called K-West. That first one was K-Rock. I went to K-West. And they said, we like you, but what can you do? And I said, well, I can't do sports. And you already have somebody doing news. I could do traffic, because he liked the idea of me and what I could bring to it.
Right.
So I said, well, let me come back and pitch you properly. And I came up with Greta, with the traffic Tootsie, who was basically me. And I came up with this whole idea of these car sounds and everything. And he said, I love it. Like I would say a 2-car combo did the mambo on the 101 and the 5 is down and out. So I did that for another 2 years.
That was in a helicopter?
No, that was in the 57 Chevy.
Oh, okay. All right.
On the streets with the car sounds. And then from there, I went to KLOS, which was owned by ABC, which is how I got to work for ABC. I worked for the network and the locally owned and operated station. I did that for about 20 years. So I talked KLOS into letting me, they would do all this promo and advertising on all these big shows that were coming, like U2 and Springsteen and Aerosmith and all these shows. And I said, you're like a bad date. You spend all this money on promoting these shows, and then 5 o'clock on Friday when the show is on, you're gone. Send me in, let me in. I'll arrange to interview the band beforehand. I'll get the set list, and let me come on 3 times in the evening, 3 or 4 times in the evening, and give people updates for the people who didn't get to go because they got sold out. And also, sometimes what they do is production kills. So 200 seats will suddenly become available. So I would be able to impart that information so people could show up. And I did that for about 20 years.
Wow. It's called production kills?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, production kills means like once they finally get the stage set.
Oh, okay.
They realize some of the seats that they were blocking out because it wouldn't have worked with all the equipment suddenly become available.
Ah.
And typically they're good seats. Sometimes they're behind the performer, but they'll be on the sides, but you still get to go.
Right, right.
And so if at 5 o'clock they say they've just released 200 tickets you still can go. And I've had people throughout the years tell me that they went and saw shows because they found out that there were production kills and they could actually get in and see the show.
Wow, what a fun job you have. So let's take it back before you got any of this on-air stuff. Did you ever have any regular jobs?
Oh, yeah, I folded jeans in jean stores. I worked in record stores. I worked in restaurants. I was a terrible bartender. The worst. But I was really good at food because I would stand there and say, okay, taste it. If you don't like it, I'll take it back, but you have to love it. So I did very well as a waitress. And then I owned my own business in Beverly Hills. And
which was what?
It was called Two Gray Hills, and we brokered Native American jewelry and artifacts.
So it was a physical store?
It's a physical store. Well, what it was it was a store inside of a store. This guy had a big, huge store, and what he did was he found 10 entrepreneurs that he really liked, that he knew they couldn't afford Rodeo Drive, that what they were selling would harmonize with what he was selling, which was saddles and jeans and Western wear. And so I had a booth from him.
That's a great idea. That's for the folks listening. So that's a great idea for people that really want to do something physical. I always push online stuff now because the risk is so low and you don't have to show up every day at a certain time. But yeah, so you could pitch an idea to have a piece of somebody else's store and to get started in your business. So
yeah, precisely. I mean, you have to have your business license. You have to have your tax license. You'd have to have insurance and so on and so forth. And of course, you have to show up. But for me, it was great. I loved it.
How long did you do
Drive?
That? Yeah.
Like 3 years. The Rodeo Drive at that time. Are you kidding me?
Really? Then what? Then what?
Well, we moved around a couple of times, and then I just went back to waitressing for a while. Oh, that's when I went to the Comedy Store and was doing improv and stand-up. And so was auditioned for a lot of TV, and I did voiceovers.
Okay, so it wasn't really a clear cut, hey, I'm stopping working for a living and I'm going to go do my entrepreneurial stuff. Seems like a lot of crossover there, right? Were you still waitressing and doing some of this other stuff?
Well, when I was going to radio school, I waitressed so I could pay my rent. But of course, in those days, my rent was $150 a month,
Oh, wow.
not 2,200.
I know.
I mean, and with a roommate, it was even better because LA was very, very affordable, and it shifted and became a crazy land in a very short period of time.
Yeah, people are like exiting California in general because of the rising cost. Is that affecting you a lot?
It's an exodus.
Mm-hmm.
It's an exodus. I get it. California is so expensive. Our sales tax is almost 10%, 9.5.
Wow.
In the city of Los Angeles, yeah.
And then all we hear from the East Coast is, hey, the whole state is burning up or something. There's fires everywhere all the time. And does any of that ever affect you?
Well, we have a season. No, first of all, there's a fire station and a police station right around the corner. So I always wave at them when they come screaming by.
Yeah, so they recognize you if you're trying to run for cover.
Yeah, give them the peace sign. Yeah. So
what do you give us some tips on interviewing, the stuff you're doing now, on what people should know and why it's important to really get this skill?
Well, here's the thing. You could have the greatest product, service, business, whatever it is you're doing. But if you can't tell it, you can't sell it. And let's face it, everyone at any time is always selling something. Whether you're selling yourself, your product, your career, your grandmother's car, do you want to rent this booth in my store? And you have to be able to take what it is and feed it to the person that you're trying to sell. Otherwise, you're going to overwhelm them. So it has to become sort of an orchestrated conversation. Now, it's a little bit different when you're doing TV and radio because they have their own language. And their own language is called sound bites and talking points. And that's how they map out what it is that they do. So a sound bite is a brief and outstanding mini version of who you are and what you're selling. Sort of like when I just said, you got to tell it to sell it.
Right.
So I have to pique your curiosity to the point where you're driving the conversation. Not me, but really, I have set you up to drive the conversation. For example, I call myself the celebritizer. Now, if I'm speaking at a Tom Antion event and you come up to me and it says celebritizer on my badge, you're either going to say one or two things to me. And you have to remember, celebritizer is a made-up word. Mm-hmm. So you're either going to say, oh, that's interesting. Can you celebritize me? Or what is a celebritizer? Okay? Right. Hopefully, you're going to say, what's a celebritizer? So I would say, I celebritize fans of Tom Antion, because now I'm making it about them. Now, if I'm speaking at an event for authors, and you walk up to me and say, what's a celebritizer? I say, I'm so glad you asked. I celebritize authors. And they go, oh, I'm an author. Can you celebritize me? Of course I can. Tell me a little bit about yourself. And you as a salesperson know I'm in like Flint now in about 4 seconds. Because it's all about the conversation.
Yeah, as long as you don't say, nah, I'm looking at you. It doesn't look like you could make it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you can guarantee I'm going to say that. Because maybe I can't sell them. And what am I selling them on? I'm selling them on the next step. Mm-hmm. I'm selling them on letting them give them my card. I'm selling them on the idea that I'd like to give them something for free, which is my 35 interview tactics, where you could get it online.
Would you say you had a freebie for them?
I do.
Yeah, so tell them about that. Yeah.
I'll send it to anybody who's listening. So don't worry about it. It's 35 interview tactics for surviving the media without getting clobbered.
Great.
So it's, relax, enjoy. You get to be the star of the Me Show, starring me, or in this case, you.
How many people do you think you've interviewed over the years?
About 15 or 16,000.
Wow.
The biggest celebrities and newsmakers. Yeah, I have. I just talked to Ricki Lake yesterday. She just won on that Fox show called Unmasked Celebrity.
I'm sure even in the celebrity status, you probably are thinking, wow, they suck on interviews. They could use my help. Because just because they're a celebrity doesn't mean they're really good at this.
Well, that was the reason why I wrote the book in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, I've interviewed people who have been involved in amazing projects, but they were so unprepared. And let's face it, when I was working for ABC News, because that was the height of when I was working a lot. I still work a lot, but it's the everything is very different now because I had to do everything myself. By the time you came to talk to a network correspondent, I have 4 interviews before you today. I've got 3 more after you. You better tell me something pretty tasty for me to push you to the front and tell your story that day, unless it's breaking news. Yeah. And so if you can talk to me in a language that I can just press play, in other words, take it out of your mouth and start right up with it, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to rock and roll.
So in other words,
because you just made my job a hell of a lot easier.
Right. The people on here have to think in terms of how to make it easy for you to pick them. Was that fair?
And the way to make it easy for me is to know what I do. In other words, we Google, people that we're going to date. And that could be a dud, right?
Right.
But if I'm a network correspondent and I'm going to interview you and your stuff's going to get out, I guarantee you it's not a dud. So find out about me. If I'm a huge Laker fan, read the paper or get online, read how the Lakers did yesterday, and be sure and push that into your conversation. Mm-hmm. I'm going to love you forever. I may not remember your name or what we talked about, but it's like, go purple and gold, yay!
So anything really crazy or bizarre happened when you're doing all these interviews?
I know where all the bodies are buried, but if I tell you, I have to kill you. So, the craziest thing was just trying to be a woman in broadcasting when I was doing it, because, in the 80s and 90s, the things I had to do short of working for free, none of them were illegal. None of them I sold my soul. I'm a pretty on the upside kind of girl. So I'm pretty hard to get around. I mean, if you don't like me, it's none of my business. I'm going to work anyway. I really don't care. I really don't. I really, really don't. If you have a problem with me, it's your problem with me. I'm more than happy to talk about it. I'll tell you. You just mentioned this. I went to Berlin, Germany when the wall came down.
Wow.
I had done a series of pieces for ABC on rock music there, and it was interesting to see what the East Germans were buying now that they could get across into West Berlin and actually buy music. So what was the face of these hungry music fans from East Berlin? It's called heavy metal. They sold out of all heavy metal. Anyway, while I was there, the wall was coming down, and I brought back several pieces of it back, and I still have them.
Oh, amazing.
In the amount of time I worked at that radio station, I had 13 different program directors, which is insane. I have to tell you, and I also have to tell you that not a lot, they were all men. Some of them got who I was immediately because they had sisters or their wife was very hip, and they got it, and they loved the idea of working with me because I'm really no drama. I'm a no drama mama. Just give me what I want, and it's all going to work out. But a lot of them just felt that women should be barefoot and pregnant. They shouldn't even be, working, taking a job away from a man. And so you really have to crouch down and try and fit into their space.
Well, things have sure changed around, because the reason, to be honest with you, one of the reasons I don't go to California much anymore is because now everybody wants to sleep with me, and I just can't take it.
Tom.
It's very traumatic. It really is.
Tom, give a girl a break.
It's
will
the
you?
Tom 2 movement.
Tom, Give a girl a break, would ya?
No,
Come on.
I can't. I'm cheap, but I'm not easy. All right.
No, but
So
selfish is what you are. You're selfish.
so tell people how they could work with you or the stuff you have available. You got books and you have training programs or
I have
consulting or what do you got?
Well, first of all, I have to tell you one thing about media coaching. And I don't know how many people that are listening to this have ever even thought about this before. So it really doesn't matter if you've thought about it already, you already know this. If you haven't thought about this already, then you need to know it. When it comes to media coaching, no one size fits all, ever. It's personal. It's you. You're basically selling yourself. That's why I don't have an online course.
Mm-hmm.
I have
makes
a
sense.
book.
Yeah.
I have a book, and I have a 5-part workbook in the back of the book that teaches you how to find your story. Even if you find your story, you need a coach, just like you couldn't do an online coach to play football because you always play. Doing interviews is a 2-person sport. Okay. So all of my media coaching is all customized to what the person is doing. If they're just looking to do local radio and podcasts or maybe host a podcast, that's completely different than working with a star of Gotham and they're about to go on a press tour. What I teach is exactly the same. It comes from the same pot, but and the tenets of it are exactly the same. Be authentic, be who you are, speak in sound bites, know what your story is, bring your energy, bring your A game. But at the end of the day, there's certain things you don't need to know. And when you do need to know, you do need to know where to go to find out. But typically, it's usually just one part of the pie at a time. You can't teach someone media coaching 360. It's what are you doing right now and what do you want to be doing for the next 6 months?
But can you do it remotely, like with Skype or
Of course.
Zoom or something, right? Because you need to see them, right? Because especially if they're doing TV, it's a visual medium and all that.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, when I do them on Skype, I have them dressed for success.
Mm-hmm.
And also when I meet them, I have them dressed for success because it really puts a wiggle in your swagger. It really changes you. You got to show up to work in work clothes. Now, if you're somebody who goes and takes meetings, in a Hawaiian shirt, let me help you pick out what I think is the best Hawaiian shirt.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, you have to be you because, I mean, with some custom tailored English suit would just be ridiculous. It's not me.
You totally have to be you. I mean, if you're a rapper, you're not going to wear, a Brooks Brothers suit into a meeting. You might if your company's going public, but in the studio, that's not going to work for you. It doesn't make sense. So you have to be logical at the same time also.
All right. So how do they get in touch with you? We'll put it in the show notes.
They can email me, Gayl at gaylmurphy.com.
Spell Gayl for them.
Gayl at GAYLMURPHY.com. And let me tell you something. When you're telling your story to one person, it's no different than when you're telling it to a million. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, you know what, I'm still doing my business on my kitchen table and the most I'm talking to other people is at networking events, you are perfect because there you get to try out every single thing you've learned for free. So when somebody walks up to you and says, Sal, what do you do? That's the same thing they say to you on the Today Show. So, tell us about yourself. It's the same thing. And that's the greatest question anyone can ask you is, so tell me about yourself. Because you get to decide in that moment where the story begins and ends. So depending upon your environment, let's just say you're an actor. And I work with a lot of actors. Let's just say you're an actor and you're auditioning for a movie You're a woman, you're auditioning about a movie about the first Bronco riding woman, let's just say. And let's just say by coincidence, you happen to be from Montana and you happen to have done this as a kid in 4-H, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they say, tell me about yourself, and you don't bring that up, I will come over to your house and beat you with a cucumber. Because all they know about you is what you tell them. So your job is you have to resonate with that person as much as you possibly can. You know why? Because it's showtime.
That's what it is.
It's showtime, babe. So get the lead out of your pants. It is showtime. Up your game. Be who you are. Your chance to shine. But you have to figure out a way to connect with them in the shortest amount of time. Now, if you're at a networking event, it's a beautiful thing because the majority of the people there are all there for the same reason. So you already have a lot of information about them to begin with. So if I'm there and guess what? And if it's a small business event, I celebritize small businesses. I'm already in your house now.
You're amazing. You said it's showtime. Well, it's sponsor time. So we got to take a break for our sponsor. And then when we come back, we're going to tell the traffic Tootsie and Greta, what is it?
Greta Lagumbo.
Lagumbo. We're going to ask her what a typical day looks like for her. And I'm afraid to hear what that's like in LA and how she stays motivated. So we'll be right back after I tell you about the Internet Marketing Training Center of Virginia. I mean, did you ever wonder how tens of thousands of people like me sit home and earn legitimate money and don't have to listen to a boss or get up and fight traffic every day? And we don't have the traffic Tootsie telling us where the traffic is and isn't. Mm-hmm. We just got to make it on our own. Mm-hmm. Well, now, I'm just going to make these figures up, but in the time you spent commuting to a job, you could have raised 3 families, become a professional figure skater, and walked the Appalachian Trail 7 times. So if you want to learn how guys like me have time to think up stupid statistics like that, well, it's because we have online businesses, and you'll learn how to have an online business to get a high-paying job at the only licensed, dedicated distance learning school in the country, probably the world, the Internet Marketing Training Center of Virginia. So check it out at imtcva.org, and it'll also be in the show notes. And keep in mind, just because it's in Virginia, it's distance learning, so you can be anywhere in the world and take the classes. All right, let's get back to our main event, Gayl Murphy.
Yes, let's make it about me, okay?
Yes, it has to be about you for sure.
Yeah.
But it also is about me that you took me to a cool party one time. John Travolta was like 6 feet from me and the guy from Microsoft. And my favorite part about it was we almost got in a fight with Fran Dresser. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yes, you were telling me, hold my jacket. I'm jumping into this.
Oh, man. So everybody's trying to watch this band at this, I don't know, it was after, I forget what movie party it was.
It was the movie
with the fire stuff?
The fire stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and then there was a band there. It was the after party with the cast and everybody.
That's right. That's right.
And
That's
Fran
right.
Dresser, I think either somebody got in front of her and couldn't see the band.
To get a drink, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I thought I was going to be in the middle of a brawl in Hollywood, but anyway,
just a typical night, Tom.
Yeah, for you, yeah. That is not us country bumpkins.
Hey, listen, if you're listening to this program, don't believe him. He is wild. He's wild.
Oh, right.
He's a party animal. He was like, took off his shirt. He was dancing with Travolta. Yeah. No kidding.
Oh, you got to be careful talking about that.
Yeah.
Nowadays. So tell us what a typical day looks like for you.
Well, it's very different than it was years ago because now I work with BBC and Sky. When ABC got bought by Disney, I really didn't want to go to work for Disney, and ABC had a pre-existing content deal with the BBC, so I started working with them. So I cover lots of events, but I do them over Skype now. And like I'll be covering the Grammys this weekend, so I'll do that either on Skype visually or radio, because BBC does radio and TV. And so that's kind of how I do it
But
now.
you're an independent contractor, right?
I have my own company.
You have your own company, and you're paid as a contractor.
I am paid. Yes, I am paid as a contractor. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And I'm a proud union person, card carrying SAG-AFTRA.
Yeah, I am too. I didn't know if you know that or not.
Yep. Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
But so I get all the movies in the mail ahead of time. That's why I like
that. Me too. That's great. I'm a founding member of the Broadcast Film Critics, which was the Critics' Choice Awards 2 weeks ago, and that was pretty great being there. I didn't report on it because I was too busy just having fun and running around and saying hi to my friends.
All right, but let's say it's big events in town, the Emmys or the whatever else they got, the Golden Globes, and so what happens to you in the morning? You get up and do what?
Well, like everybody else, I check my email, see who's looking for me.
Okay.
See what's going on. Like the Grammys are Sunday, so the people that I work with are so busy, I have to remind them, and I'd rather know in advance if they need me or not. I work with them a lot. So I just send them an email saying, the Grammys are this weekend. Please let me know if you're interested in coverage, because otherwise I don't want to have to say no to anybody because they all want the same time, which is the breakfast shows for the following morning. And if, as you know, doing radio, if somebody goes a little bit late, it affects all the other stations after that.
Right.
And one of the things that I had decided that worked actually well, having covered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these shows, and that is people like to hear about stuff that they already know about. So it doesn't make sense for me as someone who's producing me as a product. I want to talk about what we all know. So typically what I do is we cover the broadcast itself. And then, of course, I add the commentary to it because for the majority of these things, I have history with a lot of these people, or I've done the press junket for the movie. And I've seen the movie when nobody else has. And also because I cover the entertainment industry as a business, I can talk about the disruption of how movies are pushed out, either streaming or what's going on with movie theaters and cable and all that. So it becomes like a 360 package, and it really kind of works for us.
But what does the day look like? I mean, you get up and go there, spend the day talking to people, stop in
right now,
report in the middle of it, or how does it work?
Right now I have a day off. I'm in the middle of the Television Critics Association press tour. So all the networks, this is a 2-week press tour. So every day, each network has a different day. And what they do, it's a series of about 8 to 10 press conferences every day. And we get to interview all the celebrities while we're there and talk about the shows. And
this is a stand-up where they walk by, or you sit down with them, or what? You
sit down. There's about 200 people, 200 broadcasters and TV writers from all over the country.
So don't the celebrities, do they have to do like the same interview over and over and over again, and they get kind of burnt out?
They do. The way in which they set it up is they have a press conference so that the room gets it, and that is all transcribed. And then from the time the press conference is over, fast forward 20 minutes, that 20 minutes is what they call scrums. So anyone that's sitting in the audience that wants to follow up, they have these little groups of people surrounding the different people that were just in the press conference asking follow-up questions, because you don't get follow-up.
Like it kind of chaotic?
No, it's not, because it's like an orchestrated chaos, because we all know each other, so it's very, very civilized.
Oh yeah, because all we see lately on TV is everybody screaming at each other and fighting.
That's all, that stuff is orchestrated,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason why they're yelling is because they're not mic'd.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason why they're yelling.
Hey,
There's
that's one pet peeve I have about every press conference on the face of the earth. You would think, like, let's say there's a shooting, a school shooting, and then a couple hours later, the police show up and there's 500 microphones, like, I don't know, duct taped together in front of their face. Couldn't somebody in this day and age put a mic in the crowd somewhere so you can hear the question? I mean,
Well,
you think that would be kind of simple.
Well, that's a very sort of Cadillac kind of thing. You know, most of those people are not, they can't do it. You can't, certainly, because you have to understand, a lot of those press people are sitting on the ground in those kind of emergency sort of situations.
Well, one guy with a boom could cover 50 different people sitting on the ground.
Well, that's too much to ask for, Tom.
Oh. Well, okay.
That's too much to ask for. And is certainly in the case of the president right now, he's doing it with a helicopter in the background.
Yeah,
so
no, I get that, but I mean,
but see, all that is orchestrated for your entertainment.
Oh, I see. Well, I was wondering,
because he could do that at the front door.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm just saying the guy at the shooting, and then they're sitting there waiting for the police to come out for 20 minutes. And then nobody thought to mic the audience.
Nobody ever does. They just don't do it. They just don't do
That's
it.
what
They
I'm saying.
that,
Why?
Yeah.
I wonder why.
They'll do that. They'll do it at TCA because they're creating a transcript. So they have to have all the Q as well as the A.
Yeah, I mean, it just seemed from if some executive had the brains enough to just sit in their living room and wonder what in the heck is going on because you can't hear the question. And then the untrained policeman just starts talking.
How about we make it really, really easy? And somebody says, just prior to before they're coming out, you just say, the people that are asking you questions, their questions will never be heard on air. So say the question, when they ask you the question, repeat what the question was and answer.
Absolutely. That's what we do all the time in speaking when the big crowd and somebody yells something out and then I repeat it. But
see, they're not media savvy, Tom.
That's why they need you.
That's one of the things I teach.
Exactly. Yeah, they need you even worse, more than ever. See,
that's one of the things that I teach.
Because I can't.
You don't want to leave anything on the table. You want to eat everything. You want to just be like a crazy beaver and eat everything.
A crazy beaver. I never heard that
just
one.
Just go crazy.
But,
you just want to go crazy. If it has your name on it, take it. Anything that's going to help you get your message out even better. And especially visually. We were talking earlier about some of my clients. I worked with the Buck Institute up in Marin County in San Francisco, and they were being interviewed by the BBC on the work that they were doing. And so I met all the scientists. They were pretty young. A lot of them were graduate students. It was really great. And then out walks this guy who looks like he just stepped out of Back to the Future. He's like in his 50s, and he's wearing a Grateful Dead tie-dyed lab coat. Now, I told him, if you ever get interviewed, and I don't even care if it's radio and there's no visual, you always have to wear that coat.
Right. Absolutely.
Because it completely brands him.
It reminds me of that guy that wore question marks all over his suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I met that guy, believe it or not.
Yeah. He's a crazy guy. For sure. Yeah. So what parting thoughts do you have for our screwballs? I mean, this has been more of an exciting celebrity insider kind of interview, but from the business standpoint, they've got to be great on interviewing because it can really totally transform your career.
If you can't tell it, you can't sell it. It doesn't mean anything. If you have the greatest, listen, telling the world about who you are and what you do, you live and die by what you say. But if you can't tell it, who can't sell? Who's going to sell? If you can't do it, who can and who will? But why would you want them to?
Yeah, you want to take control of yourself.
That's right. Only you know about that rocky road to success. Can I tell you what's coming up for me?
Yeah, please.
I'm speaking to musicians and songwriters at LA College of Music next month. And then on the 13th of this month, I'll be explaining how to get the media to fall in love with you at the Book Publishers of Southern California. I'm actually doing a freebie right now for Mr. Tom Antion.
Yes.
I just launched my
honored.
my Gayl Murphy website. And anyone that's listening to this, because I want to know you as much as you want something for free, I want you to email me, and I am thrilled to send you 35 killer interview tactics for surviving the media without getting clobbered.
That is great.
I just want you to you can email me, which I would love, because I never clean out my mailbox, so it'll be there in 2035. Or you can call me, 323-417-5172, 323-417-5172. Operators are on standing by.
And all that is going to be in the show notes in case you miss it. And you can get the show notes on our app also, and be able to get in touch with Gayl like pronto, unless she's busy hobnobbing with all the celebrities that she's been around longer than most of them, you know.
And if that happens, I'll have my people call your people.
Yes, exactly. And we'll do lunch.
We'll do lunch. That's the kiss of death.
Oh, Gayl, it's been so good catching up with you, kiddo. And I'll see you next time I'm out your way. But you just got to keep the women from chasing me around if you can. So it's just so. Yeah.
We need to talk. You are so 1975, Tom.
I know. I mean, but I know there's enough of me to go around, but it's just, it's just taxing to have to put up with all those socialites and models and everything.
Take a nap, take a nap, get some B12 shots. They're terrific. And just get out there and let people dine on you.
Well, that's an interesting way to put it. So anyway, thanks for coming on, and everybody grab all the stuff and hey, if you're really serious about this, she's the bomb to teach you how to really be great on a one-on-one basis to interview. So take advantage of that. Next episode is 91. It's really exciting compared to this topic. How to get spectacular business graphics for your website brochures and book covers. Boring compared to the traffic Tootsie. So,
you know what? I just thought of something.
What's that?
Because I'm having such a good time with you. I will give anyone who calls me in the next 2 weeks.
Well, you be careful, because you don't know when this is going to air exactly.
All right.
So 2 weeks from when it airs, maybe. How about that?
2 weeks from when it airs, a 30-minute interview tactics for $29.99.
Look at that, folks. That's hundreds and hundreds of dollars of value right there. Yeah.
You bet.
Amazing. So we'll put all of that in the show notes. And if you want to get a hold of her, all the stuff will be there. And I love her to death. I have for many, many years. And she's the real deal. If there's anything in Hollywood real, it's Gayl Murphy.
Oh,
yeah. So,
thank you, Tom.
All right, sweetie. And we'll catch you all on the next episode.
Okay. Thanks for having me.